guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. It is once again time for our weekly shop tour. It is May 12th, and for some reason, all of a sudden, it is in the mid to upper 90s in Topeka, and the air conditioning is on in the shop. So we were in the 60s last week, 90s this week. Go figure. Once again, like I always say, welcome to Topeka. Things are just going to change, and that's the way it is. So, okay, shop tour time. Basically have a transmission disassembled here. You can see all of the old gears and parts and pieces. So what we've got is a new gear set that has gone out and been REM treated. And when I say REM treatment, there's probably a good way to be able to see the difference here. It's a micro polishing of the gears, and what that does is that decreases friction. So this is one that is freshly rimmed, and this is a stock input shaft. So as anybody knows, these gears ride on top of each other, obviously, to turn the counter shaft. Here's your input shaft, goes into the counter shaft, and then comes up to each gear as you engage the gear. So anywhere that two gears engage, I like to do some REM treatment if you really want to have a nice transmission. I will also do that on ring and pinions for rear ends, as well as bearings. Any place where we can decrease friction means free horsepower. So getting everything cleaned up, need to get a couple parts ordered. This is actually going into Steve Johnson's STL Miata, and he will be running at Heartland Park next week, so I need to get this transmission done and into his car here in the next few days. So looking pretty good. Need a couple little pieces, and we'll go from there. In the meantime, as part of my race prep, of course, for the BMW, you need to check everything, and this is actually something that I noticed at Hallett. You can see that I've got aluminum hats with a really nice rotor. So these rotors are special rotors that come from a company by the name of Coleman Machine, and it's a heat treated racing rotor. But what I was noticing, if you get really close here, you'll see what happens with all rotors eventually is they will crack. And if you let this go, it can potentially crack all the way through and create a major brake shake. So these rotors have actually been on the car since last spring. So they've held up really well. I did machine them once before the runoffs, but now we've been through a season of runoffs and then Hallett. Time for some new rotors. So I'm gonna get those on and we'll be looking good. Did clean another set of fuel injectors for Perry. So Bill Hingston is actually gonna be picking these up this week on his way down to Eagles Canyon. Yeah, I don't think Bill knows that yet, but I'm going to send them along with him to drop off for Perry. So that's kind of what we have going on here. Rolling around the shop here. Still engines to be disassembled, but I promise those of you that have engines here in the shop that after I finish Ward Marshall's engine, which should be next week, maybe the week after for completion, all of these engines will be disassembled, and our next phase of engine building will begin. So if you're paying attention and you've got an engine here, just be patient. It is racing season. So in the meantime, the engine and transmission are just about ready to come out of the Miata. The power plant frame is loose. Everything's loose. We just need to yank it out and we'll be looking good. So no problems there so far. Believe it or not, I have an MGA in the shop. For those of you that don't know, my dad always ran British cars, had an MGA that he raced forever, and this is a car that actually he stores in his car barn over the winter. But my dad is retired, and so I got sucked into doing a little bit of work on this MGA. Not something I do a lot of work on very often, but it needed a brake flush and had a little water leak, and adjusted the four-wheel drum brakes so that you can have a little bit of brake, which is a good thing. But all done, ready to go, no problems there. Really nice looking car, really. So rolling on this direction, already went through almost 5 barrels of fuel for customers and myself. So got a new influx of awesome Sunoco racing fuel, of course. And so this should get us through the summer, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But looking pretty good there in the fuel department. The Protégé is all done and completed. Had a little trouble on the dyno with an oil leak, which was an oil adapter. Can't remember if we talked about this last week. This is something that I have run onto in multiple oil filter adapters over the years. They have these universal adapters, and there's an inner O-ring and an outer O-ring. Well, the problem with these universal adapters, and in a Miata engine or a Protégé, which has the same diameter O-ring on the oil filter as a Miata, that O-ring rides right about here in between these two O-rings on this universal adapter. So the O-ring blew out on the dyno and dropped about 3 quarts of oil on the dyno into the dyno pit, made a big mess. So if you're running an oil filter adapter, make sure that the O-ring is the right diameter for your engine. These are not made equal. I do have a really nice, proper billet machined adapter that all of my guys run that is perfect. So keep in mind on that. But if you take a quick look inside the car here, you will see that the AccuSump is installed and the line is running up to the engine compartment. So the AccuSump's been installed, the Mega Squirt is all hooked up, and the car is tuned and ready to go. So customer will be picking this up tomorrow, and down the road we go. So moving back this direction, guys, here's our line of engines. I really wasn't going to talk about this, but here's the line of engines that need to come out of their crates and be inspected, and getting really close, I promise, on that. So one of the ways that you can make your brake rotors last longer is through proper ducting. So you can see here that we have a really nice brake duct coming off the front of the engine, and it comes into what I call a can. And this can is blowing air directly to the center of the rotor. Well, because we have a vented rotor, the idea is to cool the inside of the rotor and then the air to blow out through the vents. If you're having braking issues, think about how you can get air to the center of your brake rotor. It will make a huge difference in your braking capability. So that's obviously been working really well. One of the things I've been working on this week is trying to figure out why my radios do not work. So it would appear that I have a harness issue coming off of the digital base. Got some parts and pieces coming. We'll talk about that next week for sure, once I get it all installed and figure out for sure what the actual problem is. But I can't hear whoever's talking to me, and they can't hear me. And when you have a nice radio system, that's one of the things that you really want to have working. I am working on installing the audio interface, which goes basically in line here. Another shout out to Sean Sampson for this, but normally I would plug my helmet into this. What we're doing now is we're going to be plugging into the interface. The interface will come up to my helmet, and there's an audio out which will run over into the Smarty Cam and will actually record the audio. So a couple things that I'm going to use this for, guys. When we go to the racetracks, I can give you a lap and talk about apexes and turn-in points and brake points, but you're also going to, and I know I talked about this last week, but you're going to get to hear the radio chatter as well. So that'll be interesting. But step one, the radios have to actually work, right? So still cleaning on the car with my rapid remover. In the meantime, I wanted to make sure I had the rest of the prep on the car done underneath, because in 1 week we're heading to Heartland Park. So getting that done, and we're actually looking pretty good. So hope you guys are keeping cool. It's pretty hot here in Topeka, but hope you guys are keeping cool and having a good week. That's about it for now, guys. We're going to have lots of updates as always as the weeks go on and we go through this racing season, and really excited about 3 weeks. We've got our big race at Ozark, so that's what we'll be focusing on here for the next couple of weeks. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I really appreciate all the questions and comments that you have made over the last few weeks. So have a great week, guys. Take care.